Christian spirituality is not a monolith. It's not a one-size-fits-all. What's best for your life is not necessarily best for my life, and vice versa. So what I want to do with this message is more maybe awaken our heart, awaken our soul and spirit, awaken our minds to how we can better be attuned to how God is showing up in that best or better, and how we can navigate it. So let's look at a unique story to do this. And the reason I call it a unique story is because this story out of Christ's life is usually taught around the Easter Passion, and it's not Easter right now. But why this story is so important to this topic, a topic of conversation, when better isn't, because Jesus is at the brink, the crossroads of his own life, of trying to figure out what is the best thing in his life. So read along with me. Then Jesus led his disciples to an orchard called Gethsemane, the oil press. He told them, "Sit here while I go and pray over there." He took Peter, James, and John with him. However, an intense feeling of great sorrow plunged his soul into deep sorrow and agony. And he said to them, "My heart is overwhelmed and crushed with grief. It feels as though I'm dying. Stay here and keep watch with me." Then he walked a short distance away, and overcome with grief, he threw himself face down on the ground and he prayed, "Father, if there is any way you can deliver me from this suffering, please take it from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." So here Jesus is at this pinnacle place, this choice of what is the best thing to do? What's the right thing to do? What's the better thing to do? And why I've always been so drawn to this story is the humanness of the Son of God. This is really the incarnate Christ on display. Jesus, who is fully God and fully human, all at the same time. And I've always been drawn to that. You know, there are some teachers, some pulpits, that always teach the version of Jesus as the conquering Jesus. You know, there's a battle we're in, there's something we have to fight, and we have a God who's a warrior, and we're going to win, by golly. There are some that teach that version of Jesus. Then there are others that teach the victory Jesus, that life is a contest, and there is a winning way, and there is a best, and you've got to have it, and you deserve it. Like the Christian life is just some big up and to the right opportunity, and be the best, and God wants you to be the best, like it's some competitive contest we're in. But the version of Jesus I've always been drawn to is this version. This is the wounded, healing Jesus, the wounded healer. And because of his humanness while being God. In fact, for me, it's the more humanness I see in Christ, the more divine he becomes to me. I identify with that. So here he is at this crossroads, and he displays something that is wonderful. And I think we're really just starting to get it, and it's his emotions. He is completely transparent. He is completely vulnerable. And what shows up when he's trying to determine what's best or what's better, what is enveloped in that is his emotions. So this is key in navigating, I think, as we're trying to go, okay, when better isn't, or when better actually is, it has to include our emotions. And what we see here with Jesus is we see someone who is completely emotionally aware, somebody who's completely emotionally regulated, and somebody who is completely emotionally sober, an emotional sobriety. Jesus is well attuned with that. Now, Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, when he talked about full sobriety, for Bill Wilson, the founder of the 12 Steps, for him, full sobriety wasn't that you just stopped drinking. That was just the drinking sobriety. Full sobriety is when you are completely emotionally aware, emotionally regulated, emotionally intelligent, emotionally sober, and that you are able to be aware and know your emotions, but you are untethered by them. They don't suddenly grip you and lead you to places that you think are best, or to cope when it's not healthy at all. That is emotional sobriety. And so this is what you see Jesus at this brink of what's best and what's better, or what maybe isn't or will be, is you see somebody that's completely emotionally aware, regulated, and sober in his emotions. Now, some of you have run from your emotions, or some of you go, I'm not very emotional at all. And what I want to say is, not so fast. We all have emotions. It's very human. You might not be aware of them. You might not be able to regulate them. In fact, I would say, this is what I would offer. You don't have to agree with me. Somebody that has incredible emotional reactions, whether it's high or low or fierce, I would say they're actually emotionally detached. When we're unaware of our emotions, we're more prone to react by them. Now, when it comes to wanting our best, or thinking what will be our best, or we're at a crossroad, will this better be better? Will this best be best, or isn't it? Many times what those persuasions are come from our emotions. I want this bad. I've got to have this bad. I feel this is right. I feel this is the best. And so whether you have expressive emotionality, or even if you have a low-key emotionality, you are still an emotional being. But here's what I also want to say about emotions. Some of us have moralized emotions, which isn't a good thing. Here's what I mean. So when you say, here's what I mean by moralize. When I'm glad, when I'm happy, that's a good emotion. When I'm sad, lonely, or angry, that is a bad emotion. That's moralizing emotions. Emotions are good or they're bad. And what I want to say, no, emotions are human. And when emotions best serve us is when we listen to them, when they're signposts, when we listen to the siren of them, when they're alerting us. So Jesus in this story is not reactive to his emotions. If he thought emotions were bad, he could conclude, well, this grief, this sorrow I'm feeling, that's a bad thing. So therefore, I shouldn't pick what my God the Father wants for me. I should pick what's best for me. And so when we just moralize emotions, there's good ones or bad ones. In a sense, we're detaching from them, and we may end up moving towards what's better and best. And it turns out not to be, because our emotions were so persuasive. And so what you see, Jesus is very aware of his emotions. He's able to express his emotions. He's listening to them. He's pouring them out. And what they are doing is moving him inside to attune to his Father, and he's very attuned to himself. Now, what gets set in our lives around the age 4 or 5 is kind of our survival tendencies, our need to survive. And And our emotions very much are seated and come from this need to survive. Now, our survival programs, probably the three most prominent survival programs that can end up confusing us, what is better or best, are three areas. One of those survival programs is kind of security and protection. That's one. Another one is affection and esteem, and the other one is power and control. So let's take our need for survival or security. When you feel threatened by something, now if you're in a burning building or a sinking boat, that's one thing. But when there is something you deeply want and you go, I can't survive without this, I have got to have this. When your sense of survival and security is based on something, your emotions might push you towards that, to thinking it's best. And it's not best. How many of you have made a move in your life thinking this is going to allow me to have what I want, or this is going to bring security to me, and you were so motivated, I've got to have this, and it wasn't? How about affection and esteem? How many of us have choices towards unhealthy relationships, whether it's friendship or partner or love, even work relationships, because we have a noble need of affection and esteem, but I've got to have him or her to be happy, or I've got to be enough. I'm not feeling enough. I've got to move my life so my esteem feels enough. And then you made that move towards someone or something, and you're going, oh my gosh, this wasn't best at all. This is actually more unhealthy for me. And it was really the motivation of emotions that moved us there. Or take power and control. When you're feeling powerless, or when you're feeling out of control, many times we're reactive to people, reactive to situations. We think it's best at the time, and then many times we have regrets. So what Jesus is demonstrating here is sort of what Bill Wilson talks about in the 12 steps. It's an emotional awareness. It's an emotional regulation. It's an emotional sobriety. Jesus is very attuned to his emotions. And what this does is allows him to move inside. You see, when we use these survival programs, esteem, security, power and control, when we use these things to secure our happiness, to secure what's better or best, and then it's our emotions that motivate us there, what happens is we cannot depend on that because it's always dependent on an outside circumstance. But see, what you see Jesus is, he's not hanging in the outside. He's not weighing the consequences this externally. He's very much attuning something. It's an inside job. It's not an outside job. I need these things to secure me, to esteem me, to keep my control. Jesus is going inside, and his emotions that he's aware of, his emotions that he's regulating, his emotions that he's sober, not afraid of, this is what attunes him to connect with the God he loves, and attunes him to listen to his own emotions. And in that, he then can go, well, not what's my best, but what's your best. So when better isn't, that comes about many times when we're detached by our emotions, but then we're driven by their reactions from these survival places. But when we can become more emotionally aware, more emotionally regulated, more emotionally sober, this is now an inside spiritual thing, attuning to God himself. So here's what I want to encourage you with. Figuring out what's better or best isn't observing or always weighing the consequences of greener grass or weighing the pros and cons of outer circumstances. That's an outside job. This is a spiritual thing. This is an inside job. So one of the things I want to encourage you is to start taking out your heartful, soulful, mindful noticer. Begin to just observe your emotions with no judgment, meaning don't moralize them. It's good when I'm happy, it's bad when I'm sad. No. Just observe that. What is your happiness telling you? What is your sadness telling you? And then as you respond versus react, reaction is reacting to something inside. Responding is something reacting is something outside. Responding is something inside. Okay, I'm lonely. So I won't cling to that outer coping mechanism to take away my loneliness, thinking it's better, but really it's unhealthy. I start responding inwardly. And this is what Jesus is doing. God, I need you here. God, I need to connect with you here. He's even connecting with the people he loves. Would you three guys stay with me in this? He's very attuned to himself. And so when he finally can say, this is what's best, this is how I move forward, it is coming from inside.
We got time, honey, to make this whatever we want. See the days running, stretching out just for us. Fill them all with our dreams, miles gone and pretty things. The prettiest of all is your heart. Hold my breath, pinch my skin, can't believe